So did Antifa firebomb Ice Cube's tour bus in Portland, or is it just a coincidence? Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Ice Cube's tour bus potentially being firebombed in Portland, Oregon, as President Trump says, hey, let's send some troops to Portland because we got a big problem with these professional paid agitators. Now, before we even go into it, I just want to say, if this is Antifa activity targeting Ice Cube's tour bus, I wouldn't be surprised, because number one, maybe they thought that this was an actual ICE bus, as in Immigration Customs Enforcement. Maybe they thought it was that. Or maybe they see Ice Cube as a conservative guy, someone who's an enemy to them, because he has been on certain podcasts saying certain things that will make you think he's more on the conservative side. I'm not trying to call him a conservative or liberal or anything like that. I'm not trying to characterize him or pigeonhole him, but some of those crazy people out there in Portland, Oregon may just do so, and they probably took the opportunity to do something to his bus. But maybe it's just a coinky-dink, a coincidence. Now, let me go back to the video in question, okay? This is the bus. Now, what happened was there was a fire right there by the tire. Okay, that's where the fire was, and it was discovered and it was put out pretty quickly. But you can see the window right there is also busted out. So maybe the fire spread. Maybe they had to get a hose through, because if you parked a certain kind of way and I got to get the hose from the hydrant, it might be difficult. So I'm not sure why the window busted out, but you see there's a fire right there. The rest of the bus appears to be in pretty decent shape. Okay, thankfully, and nobody was hurt. I think it was just parked there while they're on their tour, and then something happened where the wheel well catches on fire. It was discovered, and they had to put it out. Again, right there in downtown Portland, Oregon. Okay, but again, President Trump is sending troops to Portland, so this could be connected. It could be connected because this just happened, and it also just was announced that Trump is sending troops to Portland. Now, before the announcement, they already had troops out there. Okay, they already had troops out there. And before I get to that, let's talk a little bit more about this Ice Cube situation. I will link to everything, of course, in the description. If you're on IG, Facebook, etc., visit the link in the bio. Go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
New at 11, hip-hop icon Ice Cube is speaking out after a fire broke out on one of his tour buses in Portland. It turns out one of the tires of the bus burned while he was in the Rose City for his Truth to Power tour. In a statement, Ice Cube said he is, quote, not taking this incident as a personal attack, adding that a, quote, coward like that would burn anybody's property that was out there at the time, end quote. Portland Fire could not confirm the cause, but did say they are investigating. They add the fire was quickly put out and that they vented smoke from the inside of the bus.
Okay, so that's probably what the window busted out for. Okay, you got smoke inside the bus from the wheel well being on fire. All right, so that's that. Now let's get to what Trump was talking about as far as sending troops out there to Portland, Oregon to combat Antifa, which maybe possibly could have been responsible for that small fire on Ice Cube's tour bus.
President Trump signing a new executive order designed to counter domestic terrorism. The administration focused on preventing certain groups from executing acts of violence and repeatedly blaming the, quote, radical left. It comes as ongoing protests continue outside of the ICE facility in Portland, Oregon. That's where protests peaked in June. NewsNation's Jorge Ventura is on the ground in Portland with the very latest. Jorge.
Well, Nicole, more of those protests are expected later tonight, but now Antifa has been designated as a domestic terrorist organization. So it'll be interesting to see how large those demonstrations are later tonight. President Trump calling that group professional agitators. And about half an hour ago, Department of Homeland Security tweeting this, Nicole, on that group Antifa, saying, quote, rioters in Portland, Oregon have repeatedly attacked and laid siege to an ICE processing center. Many of these criminals have been arrested and hit with federal charges. Rose City Antifa, a recently designated domestic terrorist organization, illegally docks ICE officers. They published their home address online in public flyers. Individuals associated with Antifa also sent death threats to DHS personnel. And some of these protests have turned violent right here, Nicole, in Portland, Oregon, outside of this ICE facility. If you actually take a look at it, you can see that the facility is completely boarded up. You're actually looking at some of those videos of those clashes. We've seen crowds throwing rocks and grenades, even launching fireworks at agents and towards the windows of this facility. Some groups have even attempted to set a fire while agents were still inside the building. Now, take a look at this.
Let's pause right quick. Now, if they're doing all that, what else can you call that other than a domestic terrorist organization? You're going to have some people probably in the comments talking about, well, Antifa cannot be a domestic terror organization because all that Antifa means is anti-fascism. That's their line they go to try and get you off of the scent, to try to get you off of the, they try to misdirect you with that type of language. If you consistently do certain things and you have a name, Rose City Antifa, you are a group. And if you engage in terroristic actions as a group, congratulations, you are a terror group. It's very simple.
From earlier this month, protesters rolling out a replica guillotine in front of the ICE facility in Portland. In response, DHS sent out saying this, quote, saying, American people gave us a clear mandate to secure their homeland in Portland and across America. Threats, lies, and violent attacks will not alter our course. Now, that designation of Antifa as a domestic terrorist organization does declare Antifa as an anarchist enterprise that explicitly calls for the overthrow of the United States government.
When you go out to Portland and you see what's happening in Portland, this is like nobody's ever seen anything like it every night. And this has gone on for years. They just burned the place down. These are professional agitators. Right. These are bad people. And they're paid a lot of money by rich people, some of whom we know.
On Tuesday, Antifa put out this flyer obtained by News Nation calling for activists to gather at the Eugene Federal Building.
Now, you see what it says right here. It says Portland in solidarity with Eugene. So they're going to just, make a collaborative effort here. We are everywhere. Squad up, make travel plans, bring PPE, personal protective equipment like masks, and your unhinged Portland energy. And you can see right there is Censor F ICE with the co-opted Black Power fist. And then it says, we cook your meals, we haul your trash, we drive your ambulances, we are everywhere.
Where authorities made 3 arrests Tuesday night during the civil unrest. The flyer reads, quote, Portland in solidarity with Eugene. We are everywhere. Squad up, make travel plans, bring PPE, and your unhinged Portland energy. Now, Antifa targeting federal and ICE buildings like the one right behind me comes as DHS says that they are increasing security at all ICE facilities across the country in light of the recent shooting at the Dallas ICE facility. DHS also says that ICE officers are facing an over 1,000% assault. Critics do say that the Trump administration is now ignoring right-wing extremist groups. But later tonight, Nicole, we expect more demonstrations outside of this facility in Portland.
All right, Jorge Ventura live for us there in Portland. Thank you.
Thank you for.
All right, so shout out to News Nation. Shout out to President Trump for doing the right thing and labeling Antifa as what they are, a domestic terror group. Now, as I close, I want to say this. I hope that the ice cream situation was just a random incident. It wasn't a firebombing, but it seems pretty fishy because Trump comes out and says this. Then right at the same time, you have a tour bus for Ice Cube that has a fire. Maybe one of these ridiculous, crazy, drugged up Portland Antifa nuts threw something on the bus thinking that it was part of the federal government. It doesn't make a lot of sense because it'd probably say Ice Cube and it'll probably be something with, but people who engage in this kind of behavior, they don't make sense. They do things that are irrational. I'm glad they're sending troops out there to Portland. And I'm gonna add one piece. I'm gonna add one last thing as I close. Some are trying to say that Trump was targeting black cities, Memphis and DC and Chicago. But what about Portland? Is that a black city? It's not about color of the skin. It's about the crime that a city is dealing with. There's a big crime problem in Chicago, in Memphis, Tennessee, in Washington, D.C., in Portland, Oregon. So wherever there's crime, especially when you're talking about the federales being involved, meaning Antifa attacking federal buildings, you should be able to deploy the federal government to get that crime reduced. I think the people of that city, whether they are going to admit it or not, will most certainly appreciate it. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your opinion about President Trump labeling Antifa as a domestic terror organization and sending troops out there to Portland to combat the problem? Also, what's your opinion about Ice Cube's vehicle, the tour bus, having a fire? Was it a firebombing? Was it just a random thing that happens? You know, your wheel well catching on fire in Portland while it's parked downtown. That can happen, right? It's not really a big deal. Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. I think there's some funny business happening with the tour bus. And I also think that Antifa needs to be exactly what they are now being labeled as, a domestic terror group, and the federales should do something to combat the crime and violence that they bring. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.